Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for June 19th, 2017. Please stand for invocation. Is Bobby here? Nope, then it looks like Councilperson Ellis, if you do the honors.
All right, let us pray. Gracious God, we come once again inviting you to be present, to guide us, to strengthen us, to allow us to understand what you would do through your wisdom, Lord, and not through ours. We ask for your blessings. We ask that you keep us. We ask that you help us in these times that we don't always understand. Lord, bless your people. Bless the city of Jeffersonville. Bless our children. And Lord, bless the one issue that's really standing out in our communities, and that's the closing of some of our schools. Lord, be with us. Help us to deal with them. We ask this in the name of our precious Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilperson Ellis. Have a roll call, please.
Yes. Councilperson White.
Present.
Councilperson Yon.
Present.
Councilperson Maples.
Here.
Council President Gill.
Here.
Councilperson Owen.
Here.
Councilperson Ellis.
Here.
Councilperson Samuel. Let the record reflect, I can't talk tonight, that Councilperson Zastavny, Councilperson Hawkins is absent.
Yes, they are both on vacation. So, can I have the minutes to be approved for our regular proceedings of May 15th, 2017?
So moved.
Second.
Got a first and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Now approve the agenda, please.
No changes. Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Claims to be approved. Heather, as always, general first, please.
We have one hand carry that Vicki has for travelers, I believe. Go ahead.
Last week I received our insurance premium claim from Travelers, and the total amount, this is quarterly, our total amount payment for this quarter is $317,308. Out of that, $101,621.25 is for our workers' comp, and the rest is $215,686.75.
Have a new total, please.
$1,404,896.76.
And I did go through claims, and they were all in order. I got an email today. We have W-9s for all the artists that did the utility boxes, so we're good.
Make a motion to approve claims for $1,404,896.76.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Anybody have any questions or any further comment on the claims?
One question.
Okay.
Page 3, down in the planning and zoning, it talks about a bicycle repair. I just did, is that categorized correctly?
Bicycle repair, how much is that?
$122.40. I just thought, I never knew we had bicycles in planning and zoning.
There was a bicycle I know of. I can check into it for you.
No, if we, I just didn't know if it was under the right category or account.
That is the correct account. It is a service
Yeah, the
that we
claim was
paid
for
a...
repair.
Okay.
Nathan, did you say page 3? Did you say page 3?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes. It's
3,
under-
about halfway down, a little more than halfway down.
Okay, yeah.
You see it?
Yep.
Yeah, I can check on it for you too.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We move on to parks.
Parks is $65,949.53 with no changes. Unless you have questions.
Parks claims were in order. I was very pleased.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, go
Yes,
ahead.
I would like to bring one up. This continues just about monthly on the parks claims. and it's David Simpson Jr. I wasn't at the last park board meeting, but since he's an employee, I'm concerned about the amount of money that he continues to draw beside of his salary for the Parks Department. I think we need to really look into, is it right, is it correct, and what would the Board of Council say on that?
I do think that the department does look at that. There are some contracts that were signed prior to his employment that will continue to get the revenue even into 2018. So he would be getting a portion of that based on contracts that were signed prior to the employment.
Because
Page
they were
2, there's a
multi-year.
lunch expense.
Correct. And we're not going to pay him out until we actually receive the money
Okay.
or the in-kind
What he's
services.
referring to.
But we can check on that too. I can get you a detailed list of all that he's received.
Yeah, and if you could you give me a detailed list of all that he's going to receive?
Yes.
If possible.
Yes.
Yeah, because I do believe one of the claims said it was payment number 2 of 5. So,
Yep, we can look into it.
any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Report of the clerk.
Real quick, and I'm sure Heather, myself, and Yvonne, we attended the state annual convention for the clerks last week. We had a lot of really interesting classes. One of them was on internal controls, public records. We also had the FBI gave a presentation on computer cyber issues, and I talked to the guy afterwards. I had some question about emails and things, and they're more than willing to work with local communities or local governments on any type of issues. But it was a very, very good conference we attended.
Did they bring up in your internal control seminar, that's why I said bring back the finance committee, because we have to have an audit board. We're supposed to be
Yes.
overseeing those, which I've been repeatedly saying that, so.
Yeah, that was in some of the slides, and I brought back a huge booklet too. The problem was, I asked them if they could put it in a PDF, and because it comes from the national group, I think it's accountants for... No, that was government. This was a government one. It was a national, yeah, that they cannot, you cannot duplicate it. So I have one book. I think each one of us got one. But there are different things in there that talk about that.
And so the council, it's basically sitting on the finance board, can be that audit board, 'cause that was my intent for that.
Yeah, that's what,
Okay. I
that
didn't
was
want to
my
make sure nothing
understanding.
changed. Okay.
I did receive internal control procedures from all the departments in January of this year, and then now currently going back to each department, making sure that what they've told me in January is still currently what's happening, and if we need to tweak them, because it's very much a moving document.
Yeah.
That people change, things change, so we always want to keep updated.
If you have any handouts or any, excuse me,
Oh,
the
yeah.
audit board or whatever, can you email that to full council just so they,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I will. The one part that it was in the book that I cannot publish. I might be able to
maybe we can...
let y'all look at it.
Oh, well, yeah, that's
It's my
fine.
only thing.
I just want full council to be aware
and
of what has to be done.
At one time, too, the lady even had talked about that it was in the later of the going on with the meeting that those internal controls should be maybe put on the web or on the public documents.
Oh. Okay.
I know that we're revising ours in finance.
Yeah. I know I've already got mine on there, but I think that's something that we need to look at and break it down for each department if need be, so.
Okay, good. Anything further?
No, I mean, there's going to be some big changes come along. State's changing, so.
I know there's a lot of changes with vehicle maintenance. Don't they have to do
Yeah.
some extensive reportings and...
The motor vehicle,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, there is some big changes coming on at the state. There is a new budget director. They appointed a new state budget director, and the assistant budget director will be retiring coming August, who we've all worked real hands in hands with, Dan Jones. So there's some, so there is some really big changes that are even on the move at the state level.
Okay, good. Good. Heather, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree.
Okay,
I
okay.
think the speakers were good.
These were the best I think we've ever had.
Yeah.
Good. Good deal. Okay, then we will move on to unfinished business, which is Heather Metcalf. This is the public hearing. It's on the ordinance of additional appropriation 2017 OR 27, which we did pass on the first and second.
Yeah, there are no changes from the last meeting.
Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public hearing unless council has anything further. Okay. At this time, is anybody here to wish to speak for or against ordinance 2017 OR 27, which is the ordinance of additional appropriation, which I believe is it behind me? Just come forward, speak your name and your address for the record. Okay, seeing none, I'm officially closing public hearing, so I will entertain a third and final reading motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Vicki Conlon, 2017 OR 28, ordinance transferring certain funds within the same department. Police merit.
Yes, it's in regards to moving 5,000 from their testing and moving it into advertisement because we're running low on the advertising budget for Police Merit Commission.
No changes, so then I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving into new business, which is Mr. Merkley. This is a public hearing for ordinance amending ordinance 2015 OR 58, the Jeffersonville Comprehensive Plan.
This is an update to the portion of the comp plan in reference to the future use map for the city. This comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission, and I believe Nathan Pruitt, the Planning Director, is here, and he can speak to the specifics regarding the changes that are being proposed.
Welcome, Nathan.
Good evening. Just a moment while I get set up here. Apologize. No, I think I've got it. Yeah. Let me see.
Do that.
And I always have to move my laptop to one side. Oops. Thank you. There it is. Yep. Perfect. Okay, we're in working order now. All right, I'm Nathan Pruitt, Planning Director for the City of Jeff, for anybody who doesn't know me behind me here. And what you have today is a update to the comprehensive plan, which came to you before from Plan Commission as a favorable recommendation. You all had some concerns about a couple of areas, and we spoke about those. Councilperson Hawkins did. I went back to Plan Commission with a new plan and made some revisions, and basically what it amounted to was that the northeastern quadrant, we had some indications that we might want to do some mixed residential housing, which includes multifamily in the northwestern quadrant. But we actually pulled back from that and we said, well, now's not the time really to figure that out because there's probably going to be a new road at some point, and once that comes through, we're going to have to reassess the land use probably in that entire area, and that'll be a much more intense look at that future land use. So let's just hold off on that and do that later and revisit it. So he's open to having that conversation in the future, as well as with River Ridge, myself, Planning Department, and One Southern Indiana, and city officials and all that. So we just backed up from that. So we amended the plan to take out some of those areas up there, in fact all those mixed use or mixed residential areas. And what you have before you today is another favorable recommendation from Plan Commission that is recommending the adoption of this of this update. And so basically what you see here is on the left, that's the existing future land use plan. On the right is the future proposed change. As I mentioned before, because I gave this presentation once, and I can definitely get into details if you'd like, but basically there were 4 major changes that we did. And you can see those in the staff report that should be in your packet that accompanied the favorable recommendation on page 1 there. So the biggest thing was agricultural land uses in the northwest corner of the city. Obviously, we're experiencing residential growth, and basically we transitioned those areas from ag to residential to meet our housing need. We did also attend to the Silver Creek floodplain. We've designated that as open space so that we don't build homes that get flooded in the future. And as I said before, we worked with the property owners up there and met with them, and they were actually very excited about the idea of having trails through that area and recreation in the future. So that's an exciting opportunity for us to pursue. We also made quite a few changes for the new infrastructure improvements. That means I-265, the new bridge that came through. This comprehensive plan in 2015 had not been adopted the bridge was not open when the plan was adopted in 2015, so we needed to relook at that. There were some agricultural lands that were sitting next to the 265 corridor that just didn't make sense. It's better suited to be commercial and residential. So we made some updates there. And lastly, the 4th major change was we designated a mixed residential, which means we're open to all possibilities of residential types. So it could be single family, could be multifamily, could be a mix of both, could be townhomes, could be condos, anything like that. So basically it just gives us the option to pursue either path in the future if someone were to come to us and ask that from us on a rezoning. So again, I just wanted to prime you guys that a future land use map is a map that sits in our comprehensive plan. I didn't bring it with me. I like to hold it up usually, but you've seen it. That's the cover right there. And it tells us in the next 20 years, if a land developer or landowner wishes themselves to improve their property, to develop it, and they want to change the zoning, and it goes through that zoning change process, so that's City Council and Plan Commission, this is one of the 4 or 5 criteria that you look at. Does it fit with a comprehensive plan, and that means generally the future land use plan. So this is one of many criteria that City Council uses to assess the feasibility and the applicability of changing zoning from one thing to another. So what this plan doesn't do is it doesn't change any existing zoning on any property. So any property out there that's zoned today is not changing in its zoning classification tomorrow if this is adopted or tonight. All this does is it sets a vision for the future, and we look planners like to look really far out because we want to make sure the city grows responsibly. So we look out 20, 25 years and say, if things change, what should they change to? What I didn't provide is, and I've thought about doing this in the past, is a map that shows you only the change areas. And actually, it would be a very small amount of the city, in fact, of change areas from what kind of is today versus the future use. It's mainly on our commercial corridors, and like I said, in the northwestern quadrant where the agricultural land is. So I do want to give that primer that, again, this is just one of many, many, many criteria that you look at to assess the fit of a rezoning if requested. I do want to go into a specific area that has been a concern of Ed Z and Councilperson Zastani, and was a discussion point at the Plan Commission meeting. We actually had a couple members of the public come up and ask about it and inquired about what it may look like in the future. So that area is on Worley Road. And what you see here on the left is the future land use plan for Worley Road as it stands today, as adopted. And what you'll see there is basically that you have commercial and residential both designated, but predominantly commercial is designated as the future land use. It's our best understanding of what that would be in the future, adopted in 2015. On the right, what you see is a mixed-use district. That means it can either be commercial or it could be residential. We want to leave that option open. We don't know exactly how that's going to go, and we want to give both possibilities there. So there's also the option, of course, Worley Road it's a pretty significant roadway, so we could see commercial in the front and residential in the back. Mixed-use district gets us to that place. So it just really gives us a lot more options. And if you look at your staff report, we've got, actually don't have the mixed-use district. I can call it up and read it for you. But basically, it just means it can be a smattering of things as a definition. It can either be residential or commercial. It can be live-work. It can be both. But that's what that looks like. That's the proposed change there. And the last thing that I would mention on this property is, there on the left you see future land use. That's our proposed change to mixed use. On the right is the current zoning of all the properties that surround Worley Road. So what this is showing you, excuse me, is that the properties to the south are M1. You have a C1 also in the north corner there. And then across the road you've got C1, M2, and then C1. So what this means is tomorrow someone can come into my office and start the planning and development process for multifamily development and commercial development as prescribed in the zoning ordinance and meet all the standards. They can begin the process of developing it for that. The way I see the future land use plan coordinating with what's zoned today is flexibility. It gives us the option to allow these things to happen as they are, or if they want to change zone to something else, they could downzone to residential if the property owner so chose. But again, that's up to the property owner. So it just gives us the flexibility to go in either direction. And these are the current zoning entitlements on the property that allow for development today. And we hope in the future our future land use map, helps coordinate that in some way. And it obviously we go through the public vetting process of Plan Commission and City Council if zoning designations were to change. So that's all I've got. I can definitely take questions from you guys. Hopefully you don't have too many changes or too many questions. Like I said, the only changes from the last meeting to this meeting is addressing Scott Hawkins' comments about the northwestern corner, the mixed residential. And that's the only thing that we changed.
I think Councilperson Owen has a question.
I have a question. Can you go back to the slide that shows the properties around Worley Road that are, that one. So we have the M1 and the M2. The M1, that's multifamily 1. How many units per, what's the density restriction in M1?
I believe right now our zoning code designates 4 units per acre.
And what is the density units in M2?
I believe it's 8.
So the smaller sliver is double the density?
Correct.
And what is the cap for mixed use?
Well, mixed use is a future land use category, not a zoning district. So you have to keep in mind is...
So what you're saying is that it's going to be categorized mixed use in the zoning plan.
The future land use plan, which is the
Future
comprehensive
land use
plan.
So if someone says they want to change their zoning, they can't change it to mixed use.
No.
The mixed use on the plan just allows for the flexibility of either commercial or residential.
Yeah. They could also come in with a planned unit development. And they could say, we want to do a unique or inventive concept that merges commercial and residential together, or maybe it's an interesting, condos in the front and single family in the back, something like that. They could come in with a planned development, and it may be mixed use in that sense of things, and then it would fit our future land use plan. But it could also be a downzone to R1, and
so then the mixed use designation on the future land use plan does not point to a specific type of zoning for the future.
We do not have a mixed use zoning classification.
So basically this is just for, if you're looking at a developer, they see that maybe our future intent is to have, we're open to whatever, that gives them more support for whatever they're proposing when they come to Plan Commission.
It gives them the option to pursue, it helps them understand that we're pursuing options or flexibility in working the site, that we don't necessarily want it to be all one thing or all another. I think it can blend, and it can actually have a softer gradient into the neighborhoods. And that's what we would hope for, basically.
So can that be used then as a form of leverage to prevent something very invasive from going there to the surrounding parcels? I mean, if someone says, I want to buy that property and change it from M1 to M2 and put 3-story apartments there, I mean, is a mixed use designation in that, in a way, leverage that we can say, well, we really didn't want something that extreme, but how do you tone that down?
Sure, I totally understand what you're saying. It doesn't give any additional leverage. It just says, we want this to be a mixed district of both commercial, residential, most likely in the future, but it doesn't delve into indicating necessarily more intensity. It doesn't say we want this to be more intense just because it's mixed use.
But is it, yeah, I think I may have misspoke.
Okay.
It gives us an avenue to say we want it to be less intense.
Yes,
Someone comes with an intense plan.
we will have to go through a public vetting process of intensity, which is tied to zoning, if it were to change, and that's not really related to mixed use. Because mixed use can be low impact, and it can be, as you're calling it, higher impact, which is more units, for instance. But they're not inextricably tied to each other, and it's not lifting one or the other up. It's just saying that we know we want it to be a mix of uses.
So the current process today, if someone wants to, let's say it's an M1, but they're wanting higher density, that would be exactly the same if we change the future use. They would still have to go through that
Correct.
process, nothing would change.
They would still have to go to Plan Commission seeking a recommendation, and they would still come to City Council seeking a final approval. That process does not change. That's codified by state law.
And they wouldn't have a leg up to say, you have to allow me to change this because it's listed as mixed use.
No. The intent of that district is just to say we want a blend of uses. If they want to do some commercial outlots in the front and some residential in the back, that fits that category. It's not saying we want high intensity or high density per se. It's just saying a blend of uses.
I just want to make sure that we're not getting to the point where sometimes we're bound by the rules that we set ourselves, and somebody comes and says, I want to build this fits the criteria you set, you have to let me build it or I'm going to sue the city.
Yeah.
I don't want to set us up for that position for someone to say, you're preventing us, after saying that this could be.
I would say less can.
Rezoning is a pure legislative function, of course, it can make a great difference to the council.
Okay.
The future land use map is a guideline or a guidance for the city council. Because it's mixed use, you're not obligated to zone, mixed use is so vague,
Okay.
you can classify it as mixed use, but you're not obligated.
Basically, the way I look at it is if somebody's looking to buy property, invest in Jeffersonville, and they look at that comprehensive plan, it's kind of their way of looking at what pieces of property, land, what they have in mind to build, where it can go. It's kind of like a guide. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it's a signal to those that wish to invest where things are generally. It's easy to look at one of these maps and say, okay, this corridor they're expecting residential. The city's already understood that we want residential here, or they're wanting commercial on this strip of roadway, and it gives them something to work off of to really understand what the local need and market is and want from the community in the future. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's how we use this. Yeah.
Is there any other questions or comments before I open up to public hearing for Nathan? And Nathan, I want you to stick around in case you have to address any
Oh
of the
yeah,
public
I'll be
comment.
here. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to open up public hearing. I do have some that have already signed up for so I'll go down this list, but if somebody hadn't signed up, you'll still be able to speak. I'd like for you to limit your comments, try not to repeat. We like to keep our comments at 3 minutes, but I'm not going to cut you off. I'll let you finish your sentence. So the first one I have is Karen. I'm going to officially open up public hearing. The first one I have is Karen Elmer. So please, whoever comes up to the podium, clearly state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Karen Elmers. I live at 2304 St. Andrews Road. That's in the Golfview neighborhood. I have a lot of our neighbors in Golfview, Courtyards of Buttonwood, Williamsburg condominiums here as well. If you might allow me a few extra minutes, I'll try to address most of them, and then they can just tack on to anything that I've forgotten, if that's all right.
So are you like speaking for the majority of the room? Can we
Is
raise
there-
your hands or who?
Is that all right with everybody? Raise your hands if that's okay.
Okay.
What our request boils down to, since our council member is not here to ask on our behalf, is that one line of the proposal be removed, and that's page 2 of 7, where it says under Veterans Parkway area, Worley Road would be changed to commercial and residential from that to mixed use, as Mr. Pruitt just described. We have a few questions and statements. He pointed out that, it could be downzoned. Well, it can be downzoned the way it is now, because it's M1. It can still go to R1, 2, or 3. So we don't have to change for that. He mentioned that in another area, we're keeping residential, that we need more residential. We're changing from agricultural to residential. So why would we do something to take away residential in this area? Why does it need to be changed at all if it's really not changing anything? The way we see it, it's just taking one hurdle out of the road, out of the path for a developer to be able to ask for a rezone. And why do we need to do that? Finally, this area has been the subject of great discussion and discord at the Drainage Board and the Planning Commission. I think most of you all have probably received letters, phone calls, emails, ad nauseum on that behalf. But I want to know how many of you all have seen the hydrology report that was ordered by the Drainage Board, approved by the Sewer Board? Have you all read it? May I read? This is on page 4 of the hydrology report. I'm sorry I didn't bring a copy of it for everybody, but I'll give it to you afterwards if you want. This was done by the engineering firm, the Lockmiller Group. The neighborhood had absolutely no input into the hiring, the selection, the results, or anything. It says the list of recommendations above have been numbered in order of most potential benefit to the neighborhood. The first one is map the floodplain and floodway throughout the stream and prohibit development within these boundaries. That was number 1. 2, regional detention facilities. 3, design and construct additional culverts under the railroad crossing. Design and construct new culvert crossings at St. Andrews Road. It says design and construct a bridge crossing at Augusta and increase the ditch capacity downstream on the existing Augusta Drive culvert crossing. We as neighbors can't understand why we would even address any changes in an area that already has so much discussion right now. We have pictures of drainage. You've probably seen our flooding pictures, but I'm happy to pass them around for anybody that hasn't. Has anybody not seen the drainage pictures from our neighborhood showing the flooding? I'd be happy to share them with everybody. So we have neighbors who have shown up at meeting after meeting after meeting. It says there's a problem. We have pictures of flooding time after time after time. We're told sometimes that, oh, these are just unusual events. But how many unusual events does it take to make a usual event? Just since 2015, we've had at least 3 10-year floods. The hydrology report shows we can't handle 10-year floods, 2-year floods, 100-year floods. I know that's out of order, but still, we can't handle it. We need changes. We need to address the problems. At the last Drainage Board meeting, our neighborhood wasn't the only one with these problems. Kingsfield showed drastic flooding, and I suspect that some of this area involved probably drains to Kingsfield, although I'm not well versed on that. I think we need to put a hold on this whole area. Finally, I would like to read something that Mr. Pruitt didn't have at hand. As listed in the current comprehensive plan, page 33, mixed use is defined as a combination of residential, commercial, cultural, institutional, or industrial uses, or allows only commercial uses. So it's a little bit different than the picture that I feel he was presenting. I'm not trying to disparage him. I just want you to see it from our point of view and how we think a developer can read these and how they can argue it legally. And it just makes it that much harder. So again, we're respectfully asking that that one line exempting Worley Road, that line be removed, so Worley Road is exempted from this plan.
And can I see the show of hands that agree with all her statements? Okay.
Is there anybody who would like to add anything else?
Well,
Yeah, that's your call, but I just didn't know if I forgot something.
is that all you had?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to let everybody speak, and then I'm going to let Nathan answer
Okay,
some of your
thank
questions.
you.
The next one I have is Susan Stewart. Do you still wish to speak? Name and address.
I don't have any additional comments to add. My name is Susan Stewart. My husband and I live at 2609 St. Andrews Road. We are at the corner of St. Andrews Road and Charlestown Pike. So this area that we're talking about is directly behind where we live.
Okay, thank you. Marty Sheffron, you want to add anything? Speak your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Marty Chaffon. I live at 2304 St. Andrews Road, and just had a couple points. Mr. Pruitt in his comments was talking about Mr. Hawkins' area and the reason it was eliminated. They said they don't know about roads in the future, and I believe his quote was, "Now is not the time." Well, based on the pictures that you're seeing with flooding, now is not the time for this. We don't have a solution to the flooding problem in this area. It goes all the way down to Worley Road. The hydrology report, which I'd like to have submitted into the record.
To the city clerk, please.
The hydrology report states that the culverts downstream are not at capacity, and of the 6 culverts, 6 of them are below capacity. As you can see in those pictures, we live with this all the time. Now, if there's 1 inch worth of rain, that golf course floods. I believe Mr. Merkley's mom's house is also in our neighborhood, so I believe she experiences the same thing that we do. But we are looking at an ongoing problem that the city committed to do a study and analyze, and we've defined the problem, but we are asking that, as this now is not the time for this, to eliminate this one sentence out of here until we have a solution to the flooding problem. Because this flooding problem exists, and there's no development on Worley Road. And any other development, until we figure out how to handle it, is only going to make things worse. Thank you.
Joan Smith here, wish to? Please say your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Joan Smith, and I live at 2601 St. Andrews Road. And I'm a proud resident of Jeffersonville and have been for 40 years, and I love this community. And we built up in Gulfview 30 plus years ago, and with the development of Buttonwood and all the other area through there, our drainage problem has only increased every single year. I know that they've come in and they've put some pipe in that was not adequate, and they knew it wasn't adequate, but it was the best they could do because they had to tear up a driveway and go between 2 homes. We have seen unbelievable drainage come between our homes, and even to one part that it was so strong coming through our house and the house next door that we saw wildlife coming through the drowned. And I often think, if that would have been a child, I mean, there is some huge, powerful drainage that comes through there. And when we came to the Drainage Board and talked about these problems 10, 15 years ago, I said, what would you do if this was your home? And they looked back at us and said, one of the guys on the drainage board said, I would move. You know, that's not what we are asking from our city and our city officials. We elect you all to represent us. We pay taxes, we love our neighborhood, and we feel like we're making Jeffersonville a better place in which to live. We just want what we feel is fair. We want you to look at the problems that we haven't created, but the growth of this city has caused these problems, and growth is good, but we have to manage our growth. And we have to make sure that we're not stepping on your good citizens in order to develop something else. Let's take care of what we have, and let's correct the problem. And then let's look at the future. That's why we have comprehensive planning, but it doesn't do any good if we don't recognize the harm that we're causing within this community that we love so much. So we're just begging you all to look at our situation. And none of us want to move out of our community. We love it. But we just want you all to support us and respect what we've invested in our homes and our property. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that have signed up. Does anybody else want to speak your name and address, please?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Glenn Glad. I'm 2307 St. Andrews Road. I'm a retired school principal from Northern Indiana. I'd like to say this. My family is all education, just like I am. And they were on Floyd's Knob. So I went to Floyd's Knob and didn't like what I saw. For one thing, what they give you there, to me, is very minimal. This area where I live, Gulfview Estates, is wonderful. The people, the environment, coming from Chicago, I'm telling you, totally different. It's like coming to heaven. Seriously. But I want to say this. You people, if you lived where we did, and all of a sudden they're going to tell you that they're going to build 3-story buildings, whatever, from this proposal, how would you feel? I mean, I came here just 4 years ago. Now, I saw the differences. I said, this is wonderful. I got open spaces, I got great people, friends, and then all of a sudden, they're going to tell me they're going to put up this high-rise, whatever size it is. It's still, I see the geese come over my house, the planes, it's so quiet at night. If you live where we live, you'd love it. And that's what I'm saying. You're taken away from our environment because of some contractor. And my son's a contractor up in Chicago, big time. But he wouldn't do this to the average person. I thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, at this time I'm going to allow Nathan, do you wish to address, I think there was a couple of questions posed to you from Karen Elmers.
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing I'd say is, unlike the area that I mentioned earlier, that now's not the time in the northwestern quadrant, we don't have Highway 60E. We don't have Airport Road. We do have Worley Road. We did spend millions on that to construct that for a new connection. So kind of apples and oranges there a little bit. The industrial line that's in that verbiage on mixed use, the intent is not to build new industrial facilities, but it's, if you think about conversion of industrial facilities to residential, like the M Fine building is being converted from industrial clothing factory down to senior housing, that's the concept there. It's industrial space, not new industry, polluting industry. So that may need to be clarified, and we'll come back and revisit that and actually explain that in the future. We can do an update again to the comp plan and fix that language. But it's definitely not the intent to put in a new polluting industrial facility. We're not taking away any residential because as it stands, I showed you the existing zoning map. We've got C1, M1, and M2. Those properties are all zoned multifamily or commercial, so we're not taking away any residential. We're still leaving all the options open. If anything, we're really just aligning what zoning we have today with a future land use designation that matches, because what we have today is a mixture of commercial and multifamily zoning, which is in essence mixed use in a small contained area on Worley Road. And today the future land use map says commercial exclusively with a little bit of single family on the two corners. So really we're just bringing in an alignment of what exists today and what the future land use plan calls for. The last thing I'd say is I do completely understand that there are drainage issues. I can't control those drainage issues, and I'll do everything I can to help in that effort, but there's very little that me, as the planning director, can do. This is a long-term vision, 20 years out for the city, and growth will continue to happen on vacant lots. The way they're zoned today entitles them to start that process. So whether this specific Worley Road section changes to mixed use, or if it stays as commercial as the future land use, that really doesn't change the opportunity that the landowners have to develop their property. Of course, they have to meet all the regulations, which include drainage.
So if they're asking for that to be removed, we're really not hurting anything, but we're
So-
actually easing their mind.
That's the last thing that I would say is at Plan Commission, I offered, because this is about 5 or 6 parcels out of tens and tens and tens of thousands. We made really, really, really strong, great changes throughout the rest of the city that are putting us on a positive path. I offered to remove this at Plan Commission, and the Plan Commission decided not to because they said this is a long-term 20-year vision. It really doesn't create any extra impact, so we'll leave it as it is and move forward. But I offered that at Plan Commission. I think we can probably offer that again. Les, what are our options moving forward?
We've been through this before. You can either pass the plan as presented, you can reject it, and if it's rejected, it's sent back to the Planning Commission, or you can amend the plan, but then also, unfortunately, pursuant to 3674-510, it would also have to go back to the Planning Commission, and the statute also says to state your reasons why you either rejected it or made your amendment, so the Planning Commission knows your reasoning. Or you can always table it, but there is a time frame in which you need to act on this. And that time frame starts from the time the Planning Commission certified it.
Are we still in?
So this is still a public
Yeah,
hearing?
I'm going to go ahead and close public hearing unless everybody said they wanted to speak, so I'll officially close.
So those are your options.
So if I understand, I can make a motion to amend the plan, remove the sentence with the reasoning being there's nothing that prevents those parcels from being downzoned now as they exist.
Correct.
And then that goes to the Plan Commission and they can decide to pass it or...
They'll have to consider your changes and either vote in favor or not in favor.
Is it really, really changing it on the future land map, it's not, if somebody wants to change the zoning, they're going to go through the same process regardless. So if we can take the line out and put some neighbors at ease, I don't know that it's going to prevent something from happening that you all don't want to see happen, but if that one sentence makes that much of a difference,
I agree.
then the reasoning from this body can be that we don't want to see the potential for any upzoning of that property. And so what it's zoned now, M1, M2 in that one spot, we would only want to see that downzoned. Am I making sense?
So if I could clarify, you're saying remove and keep the existing future land use designations on which
Well-
parcels?
Looking at what the current future land use, it has moving all to commercial?
Mixed use.
No, the existing,
Oh, commercial and residential to
Oh,
mixed
yeah.
use on the,
yeah.
So the parcels that abut Worley Road, immediately abut.
Yeah, can we pull the map up, please?
We're
Sorry.
talking about that entire
They're
corridor.
assuming this is Ed's district, but yours.
I think I've got it.
That's why I said we need to clarify that.
Sorry.
So if we remove that sentence, the future land use map would show that we want to see that develop as commercial?
Correct. So if you leave it as it is and strike that out, then those areas that are in red on Worley Road are going to remain future commercial.
But the property in question is not commercial. Well, it's not.
It was adopted in 2015, so we're presenting a change to give options for both residential and commercial, because as it stands today, commercial was envisioned in 2015. So we can potentially have a discussion about what changes.
So, part of the discussion was, see, the majority of that is commercial.
Right.
Which, and arguably, commercial development would have a greater runoff than if you had residential. So that provides, changing the plan, not changing the actual zoning at this point, provide future vision of the mixed use to help decrease the amount of runoff to the areas that are flooding now.
Can you talk louder?
That was part of the discussion.
Okay. I like Councilperson Maples to clarify. This is your district, correct?
Yes. The proposed change is my district. Most of the change in the district is actually in my district. Most residents reside in District 2. I would like to, my personal opinion is to strike, like Nathan said, and send it back to plan for a revote. Just being the representative of that district, that seems like the middle ground here. That's all they asked for. Nathan seems to be somewhat open to it.
I'm open to it.
This has to go back to plan for
Are you
approval.
making a motion?
I can make a motion if there's no more discussion.
Can you put the other map up that has the M?
Current zoning?
There you go. Yeah.
Can we do it to reflect the current zoning? I'm sorry, I didn't get.
So if we did it to reflect the current zoning, we would have a mixed-use district here because it's M1, M2, and C1. So, in fact, exactly what was just mentioned is what I'm saying that we should do. It doesn't entitle anything more impactful. It just aligns things now. Instead of it being exclusively commercial, it can be either commercial or residential.
I think
As a point of clarification, if you do amend it and send it back to the planning commission and the planning commission approves it, it's over. It does not come back to you. So it's sort of, the only requirement is that from if you amend it tonight, the planning commission has 60 days to act.
Okay.
Unless you all give the planning commission additional time.
Thank you.
60 days should be a problem. We can't get it on the next meeting because we have a 10-day notice requirement. We could get it on in the July meeting.
I'll make the motion. What is this number?
I'm sorry. It's
29.
29.
To amend, we got to make a motion to amend and vote that,
Yes.
and then make a motion to amend 2017 OR 29, striking the page 2 of 7, Worley Road, COM and R to mixed use. All other things stay the same.
second.
Okay, got a motion and a second to amend 2017 OR 29. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Point of clarification, so Mr. Alder, if you would be so gracious as to make for the record the reason for that, so it goes back to the commission.
Sure. For the reason for the change and the amendment to the ordinance was to clarify that we don't want to see any upzoning of those parcels, which may have been feared, by the language of the mixed use designation.
Which could further put strain on the existing drainage problems in the area.
So if we could reflect that as,
Well, we'll just put it in the minutes.
and we'll send that.
And then, we'll do it in the minutes and they'll take care of the other part.
In the meantime, if single-family properties are built in the M1s, it's going to affect the flooding. It's going to have an issue. It's going to have to be addressed, but...
By drainage board. Any new development is going to have an
And that's a
impact.
requirement of it being approved. It has
Correct.
to,
It has to have drainage approval.
Maintain the existing flow or decrease, correct?
I won't speak for the drainage board, but drainage board has to approve it. I don't know what exactly their language is, but I'll let them take care of it.
And I've spoken to my representative about it, so.
So I'll make a motion, we pass 2017 OR 29 as amended.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 29 as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
So, if I may,
And you
Go
may.
ahead.
no, you're paying, whatever you want to do.
I've got one more thing, but go ahead. I just wanted to make the comment that I got plenty of emails on the subject of development in this area, and I know that the Drainage Board is extensively looking through both the hydrology reports from people in neighborhoods, and I know that's an ongoing discussion. I was fortunate enough to sit in on a meeting with some of the stakeholders, people from the golf course, people from the drainage department, engineers, and I want to assure you that there are ongoing discussions to discuss how do we approach this drainage issue, because I don't think there's any denying that there are drainage issues. I would say, though, there have been a couple of emails and one comment tonight about, I don't want to see the property developed. And that can't be the expectation. As much as I don't want to impose on your neighborhood, we can't expect that this will be a hayfield forever, because it will not. I received an email, and I don't remember who from, but somebody not from your neighborhood, but from somewhere else, that said, the field is a great view. And I agree, it's a great view, but it's not going to be that forever. So I hope that no one leaves with that inclination that we can try to address the issues, but eventually something is going to go there, and today it's zoned for apartments. And I don't think that's what you want to see. And with the tools that Nathan's putting together, hopefully we can try to steer that conversation when those developments come about. But just please don't leave with the idea that this will be land forever.
Mr. Wilder?
So what I want you guys to understand is really important. If you notice, I always talk about all the power that you have, because I just think that's important to know all the power you have. So, got elected to exercise power, right? So what you need to continue to understand about these things, because what's happening a lot, I've noticed, is we're getting amendments to the comprehensive plan, which happens as you develop and things develop in the city. You got to always remember, and Mr. Merkman and I were looking at this section 510, always remember that if the commission disapproves a rejection or amendment, so if what you just did, the commission disapproves. So you think, wow, they just said they disapprove of us. But what you have to go on and understand is this. The action of the legislative body on the original rejection or amendment stands only if confirmed by another resolution of the legislative body, which means they can't tell you what to do if they don't like what you've just done, so long as you're willing to come back and have the fortitude to implement it the way you want. So I think there's sometimes you all don't understand that you kind of are, the buck stops here, and you have the ability to, if they don't like what you just promulgated in front of your constituents, tell them, well, we appreciate the fact you don't like it, but we're going to vote again, and it's going to be our way.
So we can vote on this again if it's not approved at the Planning Commission.
Correct.
And it stands.
That's absolutely correct. And if they do not act upon what you've just done, then it becomes a comprehensive plan by default.
Good deal.
So that's just something to know.
Got to offer them 60 days, correct? 60 days
They
back?
have a minimum of 60 days. You can give them more than 60 days if you choose.
I'm comfortable with 60 days.
Yeah,
Just after
they
60
don't
days,
have
no
time.
action, it takes effect as we amend it.
The commission does not file a report with the legislative body within the time allotted under section B. The action of the legislative body in rejecting or amending the comprehensive plan becomes final.
That's all I need to know.
Am I correct in that this is being discussed tomorrow evening at the Drainage Board Is our drainage board meeting tomorrow? Evening? So I thought, okay.
Point of correction for me, okay?
Correction,
Yeah.
nothing got wrong.
No, I need help. So, well, we all know that. Since Nathan, I have scratched out Worley Road on this ordinance. And I'm going to have the mayor sign it, send it around and sign it. Now, if the plan commission, and that's what I need to know, if the plan commission adopts what the council recommended, then all I will need, if you wouldn't mind, I guess, and that's why I'm asking, so I can also attach to this a copy that has the the Worley Road removed from this. Is that correct, sir?
I can do that.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. If they do reject it, then it comes back again to the council, so we'll have a new ordinance, correct?
And the council can once again say, we're gonna make it this.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because
It sounds like the director probably.
that's okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. I just want to make sure for my records, when people get on public documents, we got the correct stuff.
So I'm going to move on then, and I think either Mr. Merkley or Nathan, it's going to be you again. Amending Ordinance 2000 OR 61, the City of Jeffersonville zoning ordinance to create a new overlay district titled the Quartermaster Summit Overlay District.
Should we pause?
It says to stop development.
Do you want me to wait a second?
And I just want to thank everyone for coming. I really appreciate you all caring about this issue and coming in person. Yeah. Well, yeah, so the second option is to still have development. And I tried to explain my drainage board appointment. Basically said, like, the Lockyer Group doesn't have
They're actually wore out. They've been coming all the time.
Nobody wants to stay?
We're just now getting to the good stuff, the exciting part.
Oh, my officer's in the back. Appreciate you guys.
All right.
All right, now, Nathan.
Thanks for your patience. All right, I have one more item before you tonight. We've got a favorable recommendation from Plan Commission for the adoption of Quartermaster Summit Overlay District. So this would create a new district within the city. We've done a couple of overlay districts before. We've done one downtown. We've done one on 10th Street as well. This is going to be right next to City Hall, which you can see here in this photo. So it's to the westward direction there, the northwestward direction from City Hall, as seen on that photograph there. So the proposed district extent is basically Spring to Watt, 12th to 8th. 10th Street, really, but we included 8th as well because there's some vacant parcels back there that need to be developed behind the gas station and to the side behind the small auto facility, the used car sales. So this is basically the district. What it does is it envelops an area that is kind of segmented off by its own. It's bounded by 12th Street, which is a fairly wide road. Spring as well. We've got the 10th Street off-ramp. We've got 10th Street, which is extremely busy. But it also is next to our anchor institutions, which is the Quartermaster Depot, which is a very significant historic structure, has great architectural quality to it. We also have the hospital, which is another anchor institution. And then, of course, we have Claysburg to the north. And just to the south of this, we've got the Arts and Cultural District. And then also we've got the Gateway Project, which is happening off of 10th and Spring. So there's a lot of things happening here. It's kind of a forgotten zone, a forgotten area of the city. We want to make sure that we're planning for it in the future because it's a pretty prime piece of property. It's about 40 acres. So what we're basically looking to do is we're looking to take advantage of some of those views. If you look at that photo right there at the very top, those are Louisville City skyline views standing on the sidewalk. I'm not in a ladder. I'm not on top of my truck. I'm literally standing on the roadway in that district looking at the skyline of Louisville. That's an immense amenity and an amazing thing that we've got. There's actually a 50-foot elevation change between 10th Street and 11th Street. So we need to capitalize on that. We've really got a hidden gem that we've not ever really looked at before from a topography standpoint. And we need to plan for that and give people some views of the Ohio River bridges as well as the skyline. So what we'd like to happen in this overlay district is basically new uses. So medical office, education and training centers. So we've got obviously the hospital. We could have something like a nursing school. We could do multifamily housing as well to capture those views of the city skyline. And we can maybe do an urban grocery. We can also do commercial development. So we'd like to see all those uses incorporated into this 40-acre new campus called Quartermaster Summit. We want to enhance the aesthetics of 10th Street Gateway. So obviously this is kind of a prominent property because it kind of sits on a little bit of a hill or a summit. We want to enhance those characters there, the characteristic of that area. We want quality architecture. We're sitting right next to Quartermaster Depot, hugely historic and significant structure. I just can't say enough about the architecture of this building, of City Hall. I think we need to capitalize on that and basically promote that, encourage more of that, reference that. And we've done so a little bit already. The liquor store that's on 10th actually has a similar architectural style. It mimics that. It pays homage to it. It's not a metal pole barn. So we want to move in that direction and promote that. And of course, we always want to encourage walkability. Obviously, next to Claysburg, high pedestrian environment there, as well as on Spring Street. So we always want to account for that. So basically what this has done is it's set up architectural standards for construction. As you know, I've talked before, we don't have any architectural standards. So if somebody wants to build a pole barn, metal-sided pole barn on an R1 district as an accessory structure, they can do it, and there's nothing that we can say to stop them. Same thing in downtown. If they want to build a pole barn next to the park, they can do it. Well, they can't any longer because we adopted the Downtown Residential Overlay District, which set a quality bar that people must meet just to maintain what we have and also elevate. So what this does is it says build with quality materials. It reduces some of the setbacks. We don't have those 30-foot setback from roadway setbacks any longer. You can actually go closer. We're saying 15 feet. And we reduce parking slightly by 25% so that we can capture more of that land and actually build on it and make it productive. And walkability, of course, we have on-street parking as well. Walkability, we want sidewalk standards in there. We've got a minimum sidewalk width requirement. We require street trees when new development goes in. All those quality urban things that we want to do to make the public environment better. Here's an example structure that is a new build. I think it looks great. It's got lintels and seals on the windows. It's got great architecture to it. It's got a cornice. It's got brick. It's a great building. So just wanted to show you an example of the types of structures that could reference something like Quartermaster Depot and what we already have with City Hall. So here are the boundaries, not very visible, apologize for that. It's the black boundary there. That shows you the existing zoning on the property. So what I want to point out is that almost every single property is already zoned C1, which means commercial. So this isn't a residential neighborhood per se. This is really predominantly a commercial neighborhood. What's happened over time is there were residences here. They've been encroached upon by, obviously, the interstate had a huge impact, the development of Spring Street and 10th Street. So you get those commercial uses that kind of have creeped into that neighborhood. And because of their isolation with 12th, 10th, Spring, and the railroad, we're seeing kind of a dilapidation of that area. There's only a few residences left. And so we project that decline will likely continue, not a fault of the city. It's just how urban development sometimes works. We've also got institutional uses. The bus depot's there. We also have office commercial, the Presbyterian building. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that there's very few residential properties in this district, and the ones that remain are not maybe being kept up as well as they could. So our existing zoning code is giving us things like this. Dollar General is in there. It's got some brick on it, which is nice, and the brick actually goes around the building a little bit, and it's not pole barn until you get 20 feet back, which is good. But unfortunately, it's got a huge setback, parking out in the front, doesn't address the street, not great street trees or landscaping, not really great sidewalks either. It just doesn't help us move very far forward in creating kind of an iconic district and pushing and pursuing anchor institutions to kind of build around where they already are. Land uses today. So this isn't the zoning. This is actually how the land is sitting out there. If you walk it and canvass it tomorrow or today, this is what you'll find. 22% of it's vacant. There's nothing there at all. So either it's a building that's come down or it's a green space that's never been built on before. 30% roughly is commercial. We've got 16% industrial, 22% office, and only, like I said, about 8% or 3 acres that are single family left. So we're kind of in a stage where we've got lots of vacant industrial, office, and commercial, and the residential has kind of left. So what I want to point out is we've got some challenges in this area. We've got industrial remnants that have kind of set there because it's that forgotten area of the city a little bit. And so you've got a pole barn, an industrial-style pole barn on the top left. You've got some barbed wire fencing around some auto uses. You've got a junkyard, salvage yard, I'm not sure exactly what it is, as well as a school bus depot. So those are not the best qualities of the district, but we're going to work towards those and fix those in the future with some new development. We're going to get ourselves on the right path. Here's what I want to show you. We've actually got some great, outstanding buildings, literally a stone's throw away from all of those not so great buildings. We've got the new build on 10th Street, that's the liquor store on the bottom left. On the top right, you have the Presbyterian building, great neoclassical revival architecture. Fits right in with what we're wanting to move towards in the future, office space. You do have a few properties that are single-family residential that are upkept at the bottom right. You see some nice new fencing they've put in. The siding's nice. They've got a new roof, got a flagpole. So we've got some residents that are taken care of, but many are not. And of course, Quartermaster Depot, that's 11th Street, so you've got prime views of Quartermaster Depot there as well from the district. So what I want to point out is one of the things that this district does is it prevents any new build single-family residential. The reason for that was, as described, we're looking for a new district, a commercial engine for the city, and it makes sense to go that direction given the zoning on the property. But this single-family residence here, they're grandfathered in. They can stay there for 100 years and pass that property down to their family over and over again. It's only if they were to be bought and a developer wanted to come in and rebuild and they tear it down, you can't rebuild single-family. So we're kind of in that transition moment, but anything that's there today can stay single-family residential. So another concept that we've recently talked about is educational components. So this is a quick rendering, a site plan that we did that incorporates the school bus depot as well as the adjacent lot next door that has right now basically just junk vehicles. So I just want to show you that this is the type of character that we're looking for. We're looking for street trees and new sidewalks, redoing the landscaping, getting new structures in the district, and promoting that. So we just did a quick conceptual sketch. You know, this isn't tied to the overlay district. You're not adopting these components. These are not actually in the intent and language that you have. I'm just trying to show you where, this is actually where we started. We didn't start with ordinance language. We actually started with drawings first. And so I just want to walk you backwards to kind of where we were at the beginning. We knew we wanted new buildings in the district. We knew we wanted to overhaul 11th Street with wider sidewalks and street trees. You can see that little green squiggle that kind of goes towards Quartermaster Station. Number 3 is a new connection to Quartermaster Depot. Although, of course, we're dealing with a historic structure, it would be great if we had another inlet point and people actually had a pedestrian path into Quartermaster Depot. It's probably a fairly unachievable goal, but you know, we put it out there. We would like to study a new signal at Walnut and 10th for safety purposes. We've got a lot of traffic on 10th right now between the railroad tracks and the on-ramp to the interstate. It's become extremely dangerous. We're getting a lot of wrecks. And we also have, of course, the rail that occasionally stops traffic there too. So we need to look into that. We're still talking about that with engineering. It's nothing solid, but we just want to study that more as we go forward. Number 5 is a new road that actually goes, it extends and kind of recaptures the existing street, or what was the historic Locust Street grid, but now it's gone because we put in rail. Below Thornton's there, it wraps around and then connects back to Spring. Maybe a developer would want to put in a private road and some new buildings on those 3 sites there. In coordination with some of those talks on Spring and or 10th rather, and the district, access management is key. That includes that traffic signal. Potentially, we'll have to look into that much further. But we need crash reduction strategies. The next street over, which I think is Wall, we've been in talks about a right-in, right-out condition there because we're getting people going straight across four lanes of travel plus a turn lane, I believe. It's really dangerous. So we need to make sure that we're keeping people safe and not encouraging bad turning movements within the corridor. So basically, at the end of the day, I hope you've read the intent of the district and the purpose. I'm really excited to bring kind of a new area of focus for economic growth within the city. Obviously, the 10th Street Gateway project is still in the works, but looking further out, we're trying to encourage new development in areas that haven't seen it before and are kind of falling away in their property upkeep. I think that this this opportunity here is pretty phenomenal, with the views of the city skyline, with the existing anchor institutions that are next door, to build on that and to actually bring in new investment. Obviously, multifamily, I think, would be a welcome addition to District 1, and some nice housing, great streetscape environment, and just build on top of that. So that's what we're proposing. If you've got any specific questions, I can definitely answer those.
Sorry, go ahead.
Did you discuss your list with Andy about Wall Street, you know, how the crossing?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, Andy and I, literally every month, we have a conversation about 10th between the off-ramp and the railroad. And basically, the first signal that you find is coming in here to City Hall, and we're in constant conversations. How do we fix this without obviously causing any congestion? That's the key, is how do you fix dangerous traffic problems without causing congestion?
Right, and I brought up during the planning and zoning, and I must say, before it was presented to planning and zoning, I did a little ride-along, boundaries, basically. And man, I applaud you, because this is an area that really needs this, and I'm sure that Councilperson White agrees, because it's his district. But we talked about it too, that code enforcement really needs to get on some properties down.
We understand that. I've got 2 of them, and they've got a lot to cover.
Councilperson Owen, I think you had something?
So if you needed all of these things that are in this overlay district could be appealed to the Board of BZA?
Yeah, I mean, like any other standard that we have in our code, there's always the option for variances and waivers from that through the BZA process and Plan Commission. So yeah, there's flexibility. I'd say that obviously we're creating this with an intent. Sometimes things don't work and we can modify, but I think we want to try to keep as close to this vision as possible.
The only concern that really popped out was the parking reduction.
Okay.
And the main reason I thought about that was I've had complaints in the 6th district about Carrie Way, the development there, having a lack of parking. And it's always, tight, finding something to go to one of the 3 restaurants or the Dollar General or 4 restaurants now with Highway 33. Go ahead.
I definitely understand what you're saying. I was around when that was approved, so I'm not sure what went on there. Maybe they didn't calculate how many a lot of times strip development gets approved without users, and then they sign contracts for users, and so we have to do our best job at estimating parking demand, and sometimes it's a little off. I would say it's also better to have full parking than empty parking, like Kohl's or Meijer. So, I mean, it's half a dozen one hand, half a dozen the other. Obviously, you've got to get people to the destinations and where they need to go. I'd say the one thing that you should keep in mind is that the Quartermaster Summit area is next to TARC routes that are very, very heavily used, as well as the fact that Claysburg is a very, very high walk-driven kind of neighborhood. They tend to walk a lot. There is low car ownership. We've got about 6% of our households in Jeffersonville that don't own a car by the last census. I'd suspect that a lot of those are in Claysburg. So hopefully we can get some coordinated, again, if you get an anchor institution like the hospital expanding and they want to form a partnership with, say, a nursing school, there's probably opportunities to have parking on their campus and have people walk between. And of course, we're working on Spring Street as well with the retrofit of that, so we should be able to get them there safely.
That was going to be my comment, was you're trying to increase the walkability of this area by increasing sidewalks, and so hopefully that will alleviate some of the parking issues as well.
Yeah.
Nathan, just to make sure I heard correctly, no new residential.
Correct.
Existing can stay.
Yes.
No new except for the multi-family. And
yes.
We would encourage that.
Yes, that's correct. So we're pursuing multifamily, but single-family and duplex development is not permitted.
Do you have any further questions before I open up the public hearing?
I don't.
No?
Do you have
yes?
Am I confused?
It's already approved by the Plan Commission.
I thought we had to have a public hearing on this. Mr. Wilder, do we?
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking it would be next time.
So at this time, I'm going to officially open up public hearing. Is there anybody wish to speak for or against?
I would, and I didn't sign up.
Please state your name and address.
You want me to go there?
Well, it's a public hearing, so they can...
That's okay, it's just real quick, and it's going to be positive, believe it or not. Vicki Conlon, 110 Cherokee Drive, Jeffersonville, Indiana. Nathan, I think this is really great, and I tell you, I think it's really exciting, and especially this picture, and I'd like to say really quick that there was a small, for 26 years I've gone to South Carolina. There was this very small exit that was down there, and all they had was basically a gas station. Well, I wish, and it's in South Carolina, it's at the northern part, and I wish I could remember the name of it. But the neatest thing happened in the last several years. They started developing it, and it's set kind of on an elevation level like this does. And it looks like this now. And the ones that have the multifamily, they have it to where the bottom facade, it's all parking. And the bottom facade, you can't tell. It looks like a storefront. It is amazing to see how this little area that had nothing going on is now a booming area. They have grocery stores, people walking around it. They have a hospital area in it too. So I just want to say something positive. I think this is such a beautiful area anyway. I grew up here. I know 10th Street has been a nightmare for 66 years. So I just wanted to make a comment that I think something like this would be so pretty in our downtown area.
Thank you, Mrs. Condon. Anybody else? Okay, I'm officially closed public hearing.
Number 30.
Oh, 30, that's right.
Motion to approve on first and second.
No,
No, it's just
it's
one.
one.
Just one.
One reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
We're not rezoning.
It doesn't matter, it's still a public hearing, it's still one. Anything to do with planning. Yeah.
Got the code side off your top of your head there, Lance?
Mhm.
Yeah, that was impressive earlier.
36 dash. They were over there.
First reading. First and final.
Okay.
Sometimes they might just make up those numbers.
I'm gonna tell you,
I will tell you, I was standing over there and I saw what
Like
they were
that on
doing.
the
They were
record.
looking.
I got a motion and a second to pass 2017 OR 30. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Thank you,
Motion
appreciate
carries.
it.
Thank you, Nathan. This
This
is
is all going to
awesome.
be fixed tomorrow, right? Can we make it happen?
Give me a little time. Give me a few years.
Finally, Mr. Ashak's been waiting patiently. We're here an ordinance replacing ordinance 2010 OR 40 sewer use and pretreatment ordinance for the city of Jeff.
Nathan, before we stop on that topic, you know that Les and I disagree. I'm not going to use this one, so we can't see it.
Mr. Ashak has the floor.
We need to sign this.
Yes, second page.
Second. Well, I don't know about that. It's probably the most boring for last. If anybody's even looked at this thing, it's not exactly exciting reading. In 1985, the city of Jeff was granted delegation of the pretreatment program, which means we issue permits to industries just like IDEM issues permits to us to discharge. In 2010, we started the permit or the sewer use ordinance revisions to get rid of a lot of the ordinances that were amended. And it was complicated for a new company coming to town wanting to know what they have to meet, to give them 3 or 4 different ordinances, you figure it out. So we combined them all into one, 2010 OR 40. And if you look at the date that was finally adopted, it was 2012, because from the time it was adopted in the first reading to the time it was adopted in the third reading, EPA had to make comments and approve it. This time they changed their mind on how they wanted us to approach the ordinance. So I'm asking you to adopt, at least in the first reading tonight, 2017 OR, whatever number it would be, 31 maybe.
31.
The revision to the 2010 OR 40 ordinance, and if to make things simple, I mean, this is a red line version, but it's not all the red line versions, because there was a number of EPA comments and a number of revisions made. But the most important thing that in this ordinance that wasn't in the existing ordinance is on page 12, which is the local limits. Because in 2013, we built another treatment plant, went online, and in essence, we got a north plant and a downtown plant. Two separate systems, two separate flows, and two separate local limits, based on a study we did back in 2014. This is when the whole process started. And we submitted the revisions to the ordinance up to EPA in 2015 and got comments back in 2016. So we've already been in this process for 3 years. And the local limits has two sets of limits, a daily max for the north plant and for the downtown plant. And they were based on a study that we did based on effluent quality, because that's what we're trying to protect. There's things that look at sludge quality so it doesn't affect our land application program when we get one set up, or landfilling. But the two limits are not necessarily the same for a lot of things. It's based on the downtown plant's designed for 9 million, the north plant's designed for 3 million. So based on the receiving streams and the effluent quality and removal rates along the treatment plants, we ended up with two sets of limits, which EPA approved in 2015. The very last paragraph where it says there are, like ammonia has a number with an asterisk, TSS has a number with an asterisk, and BOD has a number with an asterisk, and that those are compatible pollutants, things we can treat. That's what the treatment plants were designed to remove. But there are also surcharges. If somebody discharges 25 ammonia, we can surcharge them and collect extra money for the additional cost of treatment. There's a last sentence of that paragraph talks about, and pay attention, Heather, wake up. The fees collected from these surcharges shall be deposited in a separate account to be used to increase the organic loading capacity of the POTWs. Just like we have a capacity fee set up that goes in with a separate account to replace sewers or expand treatment plants, the fees we charge users that exceed the local limits for BOD solids and ammonia will go into a separate account to increase the blower capacity or the aerator capacity to handle more organic loading capacity. So it doesn't burden the ratepayers to raise rates to add new blowers or whatever we need to increase the organic loading capacity. Add another little part of a tank to handle more organic loading. And some of the industries that we've been talking to have significant loading requirements that if they came in, especially in River Ridge. So, I mean, if you want to read the rest of the ordinance, I mean, be my guest. If you want to talk to me, I'm in my office. Most of you know how to get a hold of me, some more than others. But get a hold of me, we can go through this word by word. Because there's an accompanying document that EPA wants us to modify, which we did. It's called, to use their terms, ERP. It's Enforcement Response Procedures. It says, because there's a lot of things on controlling discharges who don't abide by their limits. This sets the standards by which how we're going to operate and deal with those kinds of non-compliance issues.
I had two questions. One is, you pointed out on page 12 the different levels. Did you set those? Did we set those levels?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and if, for example, if we wanted, it says 15 for the ammonia. If you wanted to increase that other fund, you drop that to 10, and then everybody who's discharging 11 or more has to pay into that fund. I'm just curious, is 15, by making it 15, is anybody now going to be charged more than they are used to paying?
And the reason that the 15, the BOD, the 235, and the solids, the 240, were set based on the design criteria for both plants. So they were designed to handle those amounts. Okay, any more than that, we would have to expand, yes.
And the second question I had is, later in the back, it does talk about some fines and fees and things. Did those change, increase, and any significantly?
They were changed to be consistent with the federal rules. Okay, so it's $1,000 per day at a minimum, up to $2,500 per day for a violation, and each day is a separate violation. And we've issued some notices of noncompliance, warning of noncompliance, new discharger up in River Ridge. So those are, and the program was delegated in 1985, and this last go-around, they wanted us to go through the ordinance and compare our ordinance numbers with federal rules and show them exactly where in the ordinance it complies with the federal rules, which we've not done before. It was done back in 85 in order to get delegation, but evidently they lost their records, they couldn't find the letter, so we had to rewrite the letter, and we exchanged a number of letters back and forth saying, look at section 50.02, and that's what, so anyway. Most frustrating thing I've ever been through dealing with the federal government, and I've been through a lot, but this has been really a pain in the butt.
They even corrected his grammar.
They did. You got to have a comma here, change the to a, and it's like, okay. Yes.
So you said just passing on first, or?
If you want to go first and second, and if I have to have a public hearing, you could have it before the third reading. And the industries all the industries have a copy of the ordinance, and they're well aware of how we do. Most of them are in compliance, except the new ones.
So just to be clear, this does not raise the fees on any?
No.
No.
Nope. All the fees are in 2011 OR 73, and that's not going to be changed. It hasn't been changed since 11, so.
Is the likelihood that someone will be charged?
Depends on what they discharge. I mean, if they discharge a metal, they have no choice but to meet that limit. But if they discharge a BOD or solids above that, they're going to get surcharged. So it may cost them more to every month in their sewer bill, because they get a separate bill for surcharges. It's about $150,000 to $200,000 a month we get in surcharges.
Businesses that are likely to increase the surcharge penalty once this is passed?
No more than they're already paying. We're not going to change. If they discharge more now than they did yesterday, then yes. But they've been fairly consistent.
Yeah, all else equal, their fees will not go up.
No.
How do you measure their discharge?
They report to us. They have to sample and report to us every month.
Okay.
We take their numbers that they send us and calculate what their loadings are, and then send them a bill. And the company that pays the most every month in surcharges is Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's significant, and it's cheaper for them to do that than put in pre-treatment. Crunchers pays a lot of money as well, but they seem to be fine with it. We're not raising the rates. I mean, it's still the same number. If their concentration increases or their flows increase, the loading's going to increase.
Do the fines, if you have to impose those, do those go into that different account, or they just come into your?
They come into operating.
Operating, okay.
So, but, I don't see anybody paying any more than they're already paying. In fact, some of them will be paying less. But
Motion to approve 2017 OR 31 on the first reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to pass 2017 R31 on the first reading. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Lynn.
One quick
I mean, if you have any
question.
more questions.
One quick question. So we're going to do second and third. Do you want him to go ahead and advertise for a public hearing next week?
Yes.
So we want to go ahead and schedule a public hearing for next council meeting, okay?
Okay.
Tell me what they are.
It's July 10th is the next one, right?
Okay, we've got Heather Metcalf, 2017, probably OR 32, an ordinance of additional appropriation. The public hearing will be July 10th.
All right. Woo! Everybody excited? Okay. The first one is Councilman Z wanted on there for $120,000 for sidewalks. That is on Spring Street from Eastern to Dutch. So that's a different project than what Andy was talking about earlier. The next ones are for the Planning and Placemaking Improvement Fund, and that is appropriating cash that they currently have. And then the last one is for my department, for the Comprehensive Financial Management Plan, which I gave you a scope of work earlier from UMBA. And it's an up to dollar amount based on hours, and redevelopment has approved that they would put in about $10,000 for that.
This, I'm sorry, you finished?
Yes.
$120,000 is that for his idea regarding the sidewalk from Eastern Boulevard to Dutch Lane?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion about this? You're not the one to answer that, I'm sorry.
I was asked to put this on the agenda and that you all had talked about it, so I don't know.
Last time I remember we talked about it, I think I was pretty open about the fact that I thought that was a project that we needed to include in the budget somewhere.
Yeah, you and I were on the same page with that.
In the queue with the rest of the project.
Right.
I just said that we
It's a
need to have
priority.
yeah, we need to just reassess our priorities and either work with our existing budget and something else needs to go, or we need to look for a budget for next year.
Because we have the Spring Street Corridor project, which goes to Eastern Boulevard, and we're trying to find ways to fund that, and that's additional reason why this wasn't jumped.
And maybe we can include this in that project. I mean, it's Spring Street, the Spring Street master plan came out and for public comment and review. I mean, there's nothing that says we couldn't add that to the overall project. I mean, since we're going to be on Spring Street doing things anyway. We talk about, when this came up, we agreed in general that we want to see the sidewalk put in, but we'd already appropriated money to sidewalk projects for the year. And
Well, I think this came out because of which of course we don't have Ed or Scott because of the ones that came because their brother was killed.
Yeah, that's when we had this discussion.
But we were very clear that there was a certain amount of money set aside for sidewalks, and there were 2 or 3 projects that were just determined to be a higher priority than this one. So this one needs to fall in line on the priority list wherever it may land, and when the funding is available through the budget, I think we should do it. But
Because Ed was not here at the last conversation, and he's not here tonight. We've got 3 readings. I'll make a motion to approve on the first.
And I'm going to vote no if that stays in.
Okay, that's fine. I'll still make a motion to approve 2017 OR
32.
on the first, with the expectation that we can have this discussion when Ed's here.
Okay. I have,
A point of clarification. If the motion is seconded and we vote, and the vote fails, can I then move to amend the ordinance and put it to a vote again? Okay.
okay. I have a first. Do I have a second?
I think we should also maybe talk to Andy as well, because it's been a while since I've talked to him, but there may be a portion of money that's saved from other sidewalk projects that, is there not?
Not that amount.
Not that amount, but
Yeah.
just something else to consider that,
Well,
I don't know what's left over in his budget. That might
Remember, Andy did send out a email. I think that leftover is to go towards the sidewalk project the mayor was looking to do.
Have some input.
Remember that long email,
Yeah, you're
Andy?
right.
Either one.
Okay.
If there's no second, I would like to maybe table this until Ed was here, just where he could have some input.
I would not.
Do you want to amend it to take that one off, and then I can bring it to the next meeting as a whole nother ordinance all by
Another
itself?
motion.
Standalone appropriation.
I can do
Right.
that. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd be in favor of.
Make a motion to amend.
So I make a motion to amend 17 OR 32, striking the first appropriation.
Colin, so that the
No,
motion has, so the previous motion died for lack of a second.
I mean, we know how to do this. We got this.
I'm trying to be purposeful. You told
Yeah, I
me
know.
like a bump on
So,
the
but we are removing it and putting it as a separate thing.
I just said to remove it. I don't care if they put it on a second ordinance or not.
Okay, so I'm just striking it out.
Yep.
Right now.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess we got to vote.
I got did I have a second on that? Okay, I didn't hear that. Okay. All right. Any further question or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor of 2017 OR 32 being passed with striking out the, amending it.
Yeah, sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay. It's struck.
Motion to approve 2017 OR 32 on the first and second as amended.
We got a motion to pass the 2017 OR 32 in the first and second as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Heather. Okay. I have 15 my name's on there, but I don't know, I guess, is that
I
just
think
a...
it's just an error.
Okay, so we'll move on. Do we have a city council attorney report for tonight?
I think that the comments I made tonight about you all having a fervent appreciation of what it is you can do and the authority that you do have are important. I want to not sound like I'm trying to influence you to be more proactive or more of the buck stops here, but I think that that's an important thing for you to know, because in reality, all the boards and all these other people that give you information and ask you to make changes and do things, they're not elected. And you guys, the 7 of you all, and the mayor, and Ms. Conlon are ultimately those who answer once every 4 years, and your job application is a lot different than mine, because whole lots of people rule on there. So I think that's an important thing. I appreciate you giving me a chance to say that to you. If there's any time you got a question about your authority, please let me know. Nothing else.
Thank you. I'll put that right there. Okay, now, department heads, I was contacted by Assistant Chief McBoy, and he'd like to address us.
PC.
Good evening.
Oh, wow.
Got a handout?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The police department's going to put in for the 2017 Federal Port Security Grant, which requires a 25% match. This year, we're going to ask to purchase 2 Yamaha outboard motors for the River Patrol unit. The total cost for those is $61,135. With the 25% match, we would be out $15,000, what we would have to put forward. The reason we chose that is, looking down the road, I don't want to be here in a year and a half or 2 years asking you for $60,000 for outboard motors. So that's the biggest liability on the River Patrol right now, is the motors. The current ones we have are in and out of repair, which is downtime, and I think it's a good investment for the future. There's no guarantee we'll get the grant. However, it requires that I come in and ask for permission to go ahead and move forward and apply for that, and that's what we intend to do. So conveniently, the River Patrol commander's here tonight as well, and apparently they saved 6 kids on a raft last week, floating down the river.
That's awesome.
So kudos to them for being out on the weekends. The raft was just floating down the river with some teenagers on it. So, but just looking forward to the future, and not want to be in a position to where we have to come and have some emergency request. I think the boat does good enough work on its own. So.
And everything's in your budget, so really, it's just, appreciate you coming and letting us know that.
Ma'am.
When will you get an answer on this?
Oh, they didn't do us any justice this year. They opened the grant up process on June the 1st and told us it had to be in by the 22nd. So to get quotes and everything, it was kind of the last minute, and I didn't want to go past and not ask you all before we applied, because the next meeting it would have expired. So that's why I'm late out on. But
He certainly is asking us for approval to proceed.
I'll make a motion for JPD to proceed with the 25% matching.
But to answer your question, Councilman, was I would say we'll probably know in 90 days.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully.
So you'll be able to expend it out of this budget, was what I was getting at.
Should be within 90 days. We should get an answer.
Cool.
A federal or a state grant?
Federal.
Who's second?
I got a motion by Councilperson Maples and a second by Councilperson Young. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for all you do. Thank you for your heroics out there in the river then.
Captain of the port. So, thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Sunscreen.
We already had our public comment for the night, so I'm going to move on to... Oh, Nathan, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't see you over there going...
Just 30 seconds. I sent you all the Spring Street Master Plan. I hope you have some time to review it. It's about 50 pages. If you didn't get the plan via email, shoot me an email and tell me so I can send you. It's also on our website, cityofjeff.net, planning and zoning. It's one of the first stories at the very top. You can actually just click on it and download the PDF, but please review that. It's going to be coming to you guys for adoption in July. It's going to go to Plan Commission here at the end of the month, and then it'll be back to you guys in July. So
Now, that's out for public comment, but are you
It
going
is.
to have any public meetings or just...
no, we
comment?
did an open house where we presented some of the preliminary concepts, and a lot of those got glowing support, and they just moved right along in the process and went to the public plan. But we've also sent it out to all the stakeholder groups that we met with. We had 5 or 6 different meetings. And I've sent it out to the Merchants Association as well, as including a flyer that's going to be given out tomorrow night at their meeting so that they be sure to get those in, and then there's contact information. So please let us know if you have comments or questions. It's a pretty exciting plan. Spring Street has not had any reinvestment on its streetscape in probably about 20 years. So it's time. It's time to brighten it up and improve business, especially for Claysburg. Arts and Cultural is coming along, and we're going to tie into that. So thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Thanks.
Mr. Pruitt, if my memory serves me correctly, this is the design is what we talked about at the UEZ meeting or not?
Yes.
Paying for the design?
Yes. So since Councilperson White has brought that up, so the UEZ, which I'm executive director of, has actually appropriated funds to pay for the engineer's analysis, engineer's report, and topographic survey, which is going to give us a lot of information to move into the second phase, which will be engineering. So we'll actually have construction documents here, hopefully in the next, I'm not going to say exactly, but the engineer's report will be done in...
Write it down.
The engineer's report will be done in 45 days. I'll have a cost estimate for the construction of that entire plan in 45 days. So that's the good news. Construction drawings will probably take about 6 months to draw up, so whatever month that is. And then we'll have a cost and construction documents, so as soon as we find the funding, we can move forward. So,
Good
thank you.
deal. Thank you. I'll move on to council comments. So, Councilperson White.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, or Councilman Ellis, I wanted to apologize for, you had an idea about tabling the last ordinance. And the reason I thought we should move forward on that, you deserve an explanation because you weren't here when we had it. We had a very detailed discussion about that and that $120,000 and about the plan that has been released to us for public comment. The Spring Street Development Master Plan has been divided up into, I believe, 3 different corridors, and there's going to be a need for funding that. And that was a big part of the discussion because you're jumping over that, which traditionally, we stop at 10th Street or we stop at 12th Street, and from 12th to Eastern Boulevard, there isn't sidewalk development, streetlight development. And then if that was approved, then we'll be skipping over that to Eastern Parkway and to Dutch Lane. So what we're trying to do, and what Mr. Pruitt has done a very good job of, is attempting to fulfill the request which we've heard over a number of years, which is making Spring Street one corridor, making it look the same from the river to Eastern Boulevard, and putting in the necessary investment to accomplish that. So that's a lot of the discussion that had been had on that. So I was a little short, and I just wanted to explain why. So also, Mr. Pruitt, I want to thank you for, again, with the master plan as well as with the, what do we call it? Quartermaster Summit. Yes, the Quartermaster Summit Overlay District. You continue to think of new and innovative ways to help my district attract developers, quality developers, and forcing them or creating an environment which is going to have a good, sustainable product in the end, with a combination of mixed multifamily housing and attracting retail. So I want to thank you for that, for what you're doing in District 1 and for what you've done for the whole city. I think that is helping to show developers, potential developers, that we know what we're doing, and then preventing some of the I don't know how to say it in planning language, but
Short-sighted development.
yeah, short-sighted, preventing short-sighted developments that end up being, eyesores or abandoned properties down the line. So I just want to thank you for that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councilperson Young.
I just wanted a reminder to everyone that our next meeting is July 10th. I usually forget those things, so I'm also saying it for me. So don't come the Monday before that. And then also happy 4th of July, I guess. We won't have a meeting until afterwards, so good time with your family. I like to celebrate the holidays. I look forward to those things, so that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Councilperson Mabel.
I would like to thank Mr. Pruitt for accommodating a small wording change in your comprehensive plan and not having so much of a all or nothing mentality that I've seen before in the past, not from you, but just in general. It was very good to see that we could take out a single line and you're happy with it, they're happy with it, and we get to move on with a good plan. Like you said, it was a few small parcels of thousands, so just want to thank you on that, and I have no other comment.
Okay. Councilperson Owen.
I would reflect the same comments of appreciation from Mr. Pruitt. The Planning and Zoning Department as a whole has been turning out a lot of good work this year and last year since Mr. Pruitt took over. Not that it didn't before, but there's just been these overlay districts, the vision that you can put on paper and see. This is what we want Jeffersonville to be. This is the standard that we can live up to. It's appreciated, and I know sometimes you get a lot of resistance, and some of it comes from me too. That's a good thing, the resistance is healthy, and we are better for all of it. But just wanted to extend more appreciation to you and your department for everything that you do.
Thank you. Councilperson Ellis.
Mr. Pruitt, I've been looking at that Claysburg overlay district, and Dustin, I thank you because, like you said, that was some information that I wasn't privy to, and I want to work with all the council members whenever we have anything to come up. And my thing was that if Ed wasn't here, then he should be here where we could hear his reasons for that, and I appreciate that. Fine job that you're doing. But there's one other thing that the council needs to be aware of. Maybe you're already aware of it, but our school administration is trying to close 2 schools in primarily the west end of Jeffersonville. And I think that when you close 2 schools close to the downtown area, and we're trying to encourage people to move into apartments in that area, and when the next closest school, if they close those, will be 3 miles to the other side of town, frankly. I don't think that that's in the best interest of Jeffersonville, and it's definitely not in the best interest of the neighborhoods where those schools are going to close. I tell people I really don't have a dog in that fight, but I do, because I've got a grandson that goes to Spring Hill School, so that's part of what I'm going to stand up for. I was one of the first students in Claysburg in Spring Hill School when they integrated the schools in 1951. So I have some history there, and I don't want to see that just all thrown away. The former principal of Spring Hill School, Mr. Hurley, is in a nursing home out in Westminster. And, it was great. I walked in there one day and he was sitting there in a wheelchair, and I looked And I said, Mr. Hurley? And he said, oh, you're one of those Ellis boys. You know, and I look back after all of those years, he still remembers. And I will do whatever I can to keep them from closing both of those schools, and I would love if the council members would get on board and help us make sure that we keep a school in the west end of Jeffersonville.
You might want to say when their school board meeting is tomorrow.
School board meeting is tomorrow night. They're going to introduce the proposal tomorrow night. Now, I've been told they wasn't going to vote on it, but I wouldn't take that to the bank. So anyone that can contact the school board members, contact Dr. Mellon, do whatever, but emphasize that we want our schools in the west end of Jeffersonville.
Councilperson Samuel.
Two comments. At our last meeting, Mr. Merkley, there's quite a big stink raised about 819 Mechanic. The pictures were shown. I'm assuming that's been cleaned up or addressed by the city.
Very next day.
Great, thank you for that. And then I just wanted to just kind of respond. I'm
Cleaned up the next morning by 9:27.
Yep.
Wow.
They were,
Are those numbers you made up?
Like I believe Larry with his.
but they were told it was going to be cleaned up the next day, too.
But then certain people complained that we cleaned it up and we didn't work.
Thank you for that. And then the second thing is I just, I voted in favor of moving forward with the ordinance 32 tonight by removing the 120, but I just felt like one of Ed's passions I've been on here for 9+ years, he's been a champion for sidewalks all across the city, and it was unfortunate he wasn't at the last meeting when all this conversation took place. I just thought out of respect for fellow council person, he should be part of the conversation, and he will be. He's still got another meeting, but that's the reason I tried to do it on the first reading, and I want to offer that as a explanation of whether you run. That's all I have.
Okay. I have a couple of things. The county council did approve that bond for the library improvement, so that'll be moving forward, and I want to thank those that supported it. I did send that letter of support, and it was well received, so I appreciate that. And also, I want to schedule our council pictures now that Councilperson Ellis, and now that we have Councilperson Maples back with us. I know the July meetings have switched, and I know someone's going to be on vacation. Can we schedule a time in July, or do you want it to move it to August to be safe? But I do want to get that scheduled.
I'm good the second week. Wow.
See, I can't do second.
I'd rather wait.
If we can avoid the last 2 weeks of July, that would be great.
Okay.
But
So it'll be safe to say if I go ahead and try to get it scheduled, which I will talk with Ed and Scott Hawkins before our first meeting in August.
so it'd be August 7th.
So everybody's planning on being here, and hopefully, okay, I will talk to the two that are not here. If they're fine with it, I'm going to go ahead and schedule it, and I will send out an email just to verify that. So we'll just schedule that before our council meeting like we did in the past. So.
Madam President?
Yes.
I was just thinking when you brought that up, does anybody know where the one was taken for 2016? This council with Steve West?
Yeah, I got an email on that too, where it's at. Wanting to know where it's at.
I've got it.
Okay, can you bring it down?
Sure.
Because we need to hang it,
Okay.
That's what I stared at. So
And
earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
our in drainage board, as you know, I attend those. It's kind of been hijacked by the whole worldly field, but they had a company coming in looking at trying to update our drainage ordinances. So they're going to get an update on what the Christopher Burke is doing that, and tomorrow is going to be a long meeting because they're going to be presenting along with being heard rurally. We've got to update a lot of our drainage ordinances, and so just be looking for that. I'll keep you updated on that, seeing the process. They are just now getting information back from Christopher Burke to their recommendation on what ordinances that need maybe be eliminated or combined, or it's been a long time since that process has happened, so I look forward to getting that done.
one more remark on that. You know, we have talked before, and I'd like to see if you all would want to bring this up, and to Les, you know, we talked about when the ordinance violations, because the drainage has violations that they can't even collect on. They can't even write. And when they're doing that, maybe if you all would be willing to add that into the Ordinance Violation Bureau, so we can start collecting drainage violations that will be able to go back to the Drainage Department to do projects that need to be done. Because they've never had a mechanism to do that.
And I'm pretty sure everybody is aware, but we do have Assistant Chief, and that Jeff PD is featured on Live PD that comes on Saturday nights? Friday nights? Yeah, it's 2 nights. And this last episode, which I watched, kudos to our women on the police force. Allie Wright and Susan Woodward, they're both canines, and especially when the one there showed Susan with her dog, a guy ran, she would call to that, didn't have to deploy her dog, but as soon as she said she was going to deploy that dog, he immediately came up from where he was hiding at and basically surrendered. But she had this sense to go where he was, and he hid some drugs. So it's pretty cool to see that in action and see what, as the calls are unfolding, but still having that quick sense about them. I was very proud. I'm always proud of JPD, but watching that show and seeing how they handle the calls and what they're handled. I mean, just that very night, the guy accused them of planting marijuana in his truck or his car. So good luck on that, and thank you guys. But with that, that's all I have for now, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Being adjourned.